Hi Year 6, I hope you've had a really good half-term break and you're ready to get back into some learning again this week. Some more grammar videos for you coming up, so let's see what it is for this week.
Relative clauses are a type of subordinate clause and describe nouns and pronouns. We use relative clauses to give additional information about a noun. A relative clause always starts with a relative pronoun. But before we get onto relative pronouns, let's start by looking at what a pronoun is. A pronoun takes the place of a noun in a sentence. Without pronouns, English would be very repetitive. If the full name of a noun were used each time it had to be referred to, sentences would also be very long and a bit confusing. Let's look at an example. James loves playing the guitar. James finds the guitar very relaxing. We must use the name of the noun when someone or something is referred to for the first time. In this sentence, we are talking about two different nouns. James, the subject of our sentence, and the guitar. Once a noun has been referred to by its actual name once, another word, a pronoun, can be used to stand for this name. Because we have mentioned our two nouns, James and the guitar, in the first sentence, we can use pronouns to refer to them in the second sentence. So let's replace James with he and the guitar with it. Our sentences still make sense, but are now less repetitive. So now we've recapped pronouns, let's look at relative clauses. We use relative clauses to give additional information about a noun. A relative clause always starts with a relative pronoun, and there are 7 relative pronouns which you are likely to come across. Who, whom, whose, which, where, when, and that. An easy way to remember these is by the song which we taught earlier this year. Let's have a look at an example. This is a main clause. In this sentence, we have two different nouns, James and the guitar. We use relative clauses to give extra information about a noun in a sentence. To start with, let's provide some additional information about our first noun, James. Because James is a person, we use the relative pronoun who when adding extra information. James, who is 11 years old, loves playing the guitar. Here, we have added a relative clause within our sentence to provide some extra information about James. In this example, we have started our relative clause with the relative pronoun who. Notice how we have separated our relative clause from our main clause using commas. This is because the extra information is not essential information in our sentence. We don't need this information to understand the sentence. Also notice that our relative clause wouldn't make sense by itself if we remove the rest of the sentence. This is an easy way to identify which part of a sentence is a relative clause. In our original sentence, we can also add a relative clause providing additional information about our second noun, the guitar. Because this is a physical object and not a human, we use the relative pronoun which. You might also use the relative pronoun that when adding information about an object, but there are some rules about when you should use which or that correctly in a sentence. Understanding when to use either of these relative pronouns correctly gets a little tricky and quite confusing, so we'll leave this out for now. So let's add some extra information about the guitar. James loves playing the guitar, which is yellow. Again, notice that our relative clause wouldn't make sense if the rest of the sentence was removed. It also starts with the relative pronoun which.
So I'm going to leave it there for this week, and we'll be back again next week with part 2 about relative clauses. See if you can remember the 7 relative pronouns for next week, and I'll set you some questions in the next video. And you never know, I may even sing for you too. Have a nice week, and I'll see you soon.